We're going to start with Will in Utah, Mormon country there. Will, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt.
How's it?
Hello.
So a few weeks ago, Matt said that he wanted to talk to a Mormon about evolution, that believed in evolution, defended evolution, etc. My parents...
Pretty sure I was talking about a specific person.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure I was talking about a specific person, but that doesn't mean anything. Thanks for calling. So, welcome.
Okay. So, like, my parents both taught at BYU, Hawaii. Both were sociologists. My dad's an anthropologist, and almost every year he had a student stand up and yell, how could you possibly be a Mormon and teach this evolution nonsense? There's a few stances that you got to come from in order to do both. One is understand that the official position of the Mormon Church is that there is no official position on evolution. That's the first one. Then you also got to rationalize it. Does it affect your salvation? Believing in evolution, yes or no? Doesn't. If God came down and said you have to change your mind, could you do that? Sure. If he came down and explained how evolution happened different than how science explained it, then yeah, I have no problem changing my mind.
Well, you don't feel like you're leaving some major details out here? Are you an ex-Mormon?
Yeah.
How long's it been?
About 10 years.
Did you go through the temple?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you the question directly then. Is a belief in evolution contradictory to the acceptance of the temple principles taught during the endowment ceremony?
I don't remember having any conflict, and at the time I believed in both at the time.
Yeah, so you can't.
Which specifically?
It is total cognitive dissonance, because the what you learn as the origin of humanity and the origin of the universe in the temple is there are parts where you can say, well, this specific thing could, it doesn't specify period of time. So as Adam and Jesus are creating the universe, that could have been whatever. But there are other things that you can't hide behind, which is the actual literal canonization of Noah's flood, and that Adam and Eve were literal people and were the first two Homo sapiens from which all Homo sapiens come. And those are both contradictory. Those can't be true, and the theory of evolution be true at the same time. Now, am I aware that BYU still teaches evolution, and basically they don't have an answer for it, and so they don't have an official stance, isn't because they wouldn't like to, it's because reality contradicts their ordinances. So go ahead. What was your response going to be?
Well, as far as contradicting the ordinance, I don't believe they've ever had, going back to the beginning, I don't think they've ever had a position on evolution, if they could have been. But as far as Adam and Eve goes,
Wait. You just said that in response to what I said, I think. And my question to you was whether or not the ordinances of the temple were contradictory to the theory of evolution, to which you said no. I corrected you, and then you seemed to push back on that but they didn't have an official stance, which is you having a different argument. So go ahead with that.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand your explanation, which was, it sounded like that they changed their position, and I don't think they ever changed
I've never said,
I just don't think they ever had it.
Please don't add words more than I've said.
No, I'm asking what you're...
Actually, there is a change of position, because the actual prophets of the Mormon Church have directly said in the past that evolution definitely ain't it. However, they never made it official church doctrine. They didn't put it in D&C, and so there's just enough of that evidence where, meanwhile, Mormons will say, if the prophet is at the pulpit, you can consider those words from God. But then when they say things like that, including when they are saying things are revelation, that's where Mormons will go, well, but they didn't really say. It is weird, though, Will, because it sounds like you're in this phase of post-Mormonism where that most post-Mormons go through, that just doesn't usually last as long, where you're trying to defend the church as like some reasonable entity at the same time. It's very odd.
So I'm not trying to defend the church. I'm trying to defend where I was 10 years ago. And if you want me to talk
Sure,
about
wrong and
the,
full of cognitive dissonance is where you were.
well, I'm
So-
definitely not disputing that.
Sure.
But if you want to talk about the explanation about anti-evolution, we can go that way. But I wanted to talk about the Adam and Eve being the Genesis and how I reconciled that back when I was still Mormon.
Sure, and make sure that you include a resource such as the card that is distributed to seminary students that that both indicates
Not
the
going that way.
age.
I'm not going that way.
Okay, but I'm making sure that you keep this in mind as you're going to reconcile with evolution, that seminary students, as they are taught the church doctrine, are distributed a card that both indicates the age of Adam when he died and around what era he would have been alive. So we can't be talking about an Adam and Eve for any period more than 10,000 years ago. But go ahead if you want to try and make this reconcile.
No, so like I stated before, I grew up in a house that believed and taught evolution in college.
Sure.
And so that's where I came from, not from going the other direction where you have to say the Earth is 6,000 years old or whatever.
I understand.
So
And the
my
BYU teaches
understanding-
it as well, and creationism is quote unquote a choice in the church, but it is more consistent with doctrinal things they teach, is my point.
So like in the evolution classes, they never taught creationism. Or at least my parents didn't. Now for the Adam and Eve thing, Adam and Eve were the first humans. The way that I reconcile that is that there's millions of years of humanoids, what is the various different humanoids, and then evolution came along and it developed to the point to where what we consider modern humans were close enough, and God said, okay, this is where I want to start my human culture, and then he inserted a spirit into one of those humanoids.
And 30 years ago, you would be excommunicated for spreading that because that's impossible with their story. Adam and Eve can't coexist at the same time as other Homo sapiens. They would have genetically been the same. There is no point where there's a narrow spot. So it's.
No,
I get that this was the way you reconciled. I just don't understand the point of defending that reconciliation. It's super incorrect.
Adam's mother would have been another human, just didn't have the human quote unquote spirit in her yet.
I'm aware of ways they try to twist it in knots to people who don't understand both evolution. And again, you're relying on things where if you were a Mormon trying to teach me this, I'd be doing the same thing I did. Why are you ignoring this doctrine that it is contradictory to, or this one? And the literal Adam and Eve, this literal story of Adam and Eve as codified in the temple ceremony is Adam is put on the earth and Eve is formed of a rib. The Garden of Eden is a literal place, and they name all the beasts of the land. In fact, earlier doctrine, when you're going through Brigham Young and stuff, not only has Adam as the first man, but as the human incarnation of God. That Adam was actually God, as God put his spirit into a human body and was the first one. So again, I don't know why we're just kind of going through, when you were a member, this is how you made it work, as though it seems like you're saying there was a way to make it work that didn't contradict, when I've pointed out, what are we up to, 9 contradictions so far?
Possible. But so it sounds like you're taking the stance of a Mormon, and I'm taking the stance of the evolutionist. And I would say
I can do it from either way. I can either way.
Yeah.
Well, it's not
reasonable.
Well, it's not. You're taking one, you're taking the other. You're taking the position that you had a way to reconcile these two, and Jimmy's pointing out that he doesn't see any way to reconcile.
And so, what the latest thing that he said was talking about like a literal. Wait, the literal. I don't remember.
Literal Garden of Eden, literal Adam and Eve, literal the story of literally the second article of faith of Mormonism points to the event of losing knowledge and all, or gaining the knowledge of good and evil, and all of these. It's that story is a literal story in Mormonism.
Yeah. And I can still reconcile that by saying that Adam and Eve were not the only humans on the earth at the time. There was just as many humans as you say there were.
So are there any people right now today, according to Mormonism, who do not have Adam and Eve both in their direct parental genealogy, as in not cousins, not uncles, not whatever, as in eventually if you go parent to parent to parent to parent, you will get back to specifically Adam and Eve. According to Mormonism, what is true?
I don't see why not.
According to Mormonism, you go back to a literal parental. This is what their whole genealogy doctrine is based on, and the commands to do genealogy, that eventually you go back specifically to Adam and Eve. Meanwhile, for that to be possible, you're talking about a mitochondrial Eve and essentially a DNA Adam. There's another term for it, something Adam, that I'm just blanking on at the moment. Those individuals in our human lineage were not a couple. And the most recent mitochondrial Eve, I believe, lived somewhere between 50 and 150,000 years ago, whereas the Adam, the parental Adam that all people share as a common ancestor, has been estimated as much as millions of years ago. So there is not a way to reconcile that genealogy thing and actual science.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood something that I heard a couple of years ago.
Y chromosomal Adam is the term.
Okay, but so maybe I misunderstood. Maybe you can help me understand this part of evolution that says that all humans on the earth right now currently can go back a certain amount of generations, and then we're all basically coming from the same
woman.
No, and I'm not talking about mitochondrial.
It's not the same couple. It's the same woman. If we're talking about a female mitochondrial Eve.
This is something different than. So we're talking about generations. Like you go back like 100 generations or something like that, and then we all have basically the same DNA base.
The sentence you just said makes zero
you're
sense.
mixing different concepts. The fact that we have a shared common ancestor doesn't mean that we share a pair of common ancestors.
Oh,
there is not a single pair of people like Adam and Eve. It is a
I guess I'm not explaining what I'm trying to say.
There is a specific group of people. A specific, I don't know what you want to call them, but it was a specific group in one geographic area of several thousand people that we all descend from, more recently than mitochondrial Eve. And then less recently, mitochondrial Eve would have been around 100,000 years ago, I think is the right number. And any male mate of hers was not Y chromosomal Adam.
So maybe I'll rather than trying to explain what I was trying to explain a minute ago, I'll go something a little bit simpler. Back before
this is the wildest.
What I heard.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. This is the wildest thing I've seen in a while from an ex-Mormon 10 years out, where it's literally like you think that if you go 2 more layers deep, suddenly we're going to go, oh, well, now it makes sense. When at the shallowest level and every level you go deeper, it's been just as bad, buddy. You're out of the church. You don't have to do this thing we were all programmed to do, which is never admit that the doctrine is wrong. It's wrong. It's not reconcilable. If it was reconcilable, many people would still be in the church.
Okay. Like, I mean, I don't disagree with you. Like, I don't go to church anymore. I don't believe in it. I'm trying to explain, like, how I understood it.
Right. And that person that you were, whatever year, decade of time ago, 10 years ago, whatever, was experiencing cognitive dissonance and was defending an indefensible position with a sort of stubborn of no, because this, in a way that is not remotely honest or consistent with the science.
So coming back to that, it comes back to the, could I change my mind? Yes, I could. If God came down and said, no, this is the way I did it. Okay, cool. Did he use evolution to get to where we are? That's how I think it was. Are we trying to understand his evolution? Yes.
I'm confused about this. Could I change my mind issue?
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean, or hang on. I don't know what you mean or why that's relevant.
Because, okay, so why it's relevant is he's saying that there's contradictions. science is finding shit out like all the time. We had a doctrine that started back in the mid 1800s. There's contradictions, and we're finding stuff out all the time. We're going, oh, so this is how it happened. So if you're unwilling to change your mind to the facts that are being brought in, then that's where there's a problem. Are you able to change your mind on the evolution, or are you able to change your mind on creation?
You're speaking in present tense as though you're currently a Mormon, is the weird thing.
But you also just said you could change your mind if God came down and told you that he did it differently.
Yeah. If he came down and explained it, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. That's
Wouldn't that be true? Stop, Will. Wouldn't that be true for literally everything? If God showed up and told you this is how you did it, you're wrong. Wouldn't you change your mind on everything?
Yes.
So why the fuck is this relevant? No. How the fuck is this relevant? How the fuck is this relevant to the position on evolution? Because you're saying you have a way where you can accept the science and stay a Mormon basically until God tells you it's wrong.
Because we figured out things that happened hundreds of years after the Mormon Church started. And it makes sense. It's true.
No, Will. That sentence that you just uttered, because we figured out things that happened hundreds of years after the Mormon Church started, that sentence makes absolutely no sense in response to the question I just asked you. It's like we're not even speaking the same language. The same concepts are not present in your response to me that are present in the question.
Okay, then I didn't misunderstand your question.
You are saying that you found a way to accept the science on evolution, and that one of the criteria was as long as you were willing to change your mind if God told you differently. And I said,
okay, so maybe I didn't explain that part. So maybe I didn't explain that part. So I believe in evolution because it's verifiable. You can do tests and stuff like that.
Do you believe in God?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Continue.
So I believe in evolution, everything. And I'm going to go, and people have asked me while I was still Mormon, like, if you believe in evolution, you're not going to be able to go to heaven. And I was like, why not? And they're like, because then you're like not believing in the doctrine. And I was like, okay, but I mean, if we go to heaven and God said that you're doing it wrong, then I'd be like, okay, cool. Show me how it happened.
Right. Those Mormons were wrong. We're not going to defend those.
You think you can ignore Mormon doctrine until you get to heaven and then have God explain it to you and you'll be okay?
Well, the Mormons he's talking about weren't speaking doctrine. This is sort of there are people who think that Mormonism has to be creationist, and the church doesn't officially say you can't believe in, it just is contradictory to other
he
stuff
said,
we talked about.
He literally said that he could ignore the doctrine and then just get to heaven, and when God tells him at that point that the doctrine's wrong, it'd be fine.
So no, Jimmy was correct in what I was saying, and Matt, I'm not ignoring the doctrine. I'm reconciling. I can't think of the word right now.
You're ignoring the conflict between the doctrine.
Right.
Okay. I don't think I was.
I already explained to you multiple instances where you were, and so somehow you are still stubbornly defending your Peter priesthood persona from 10 years ago. Don't try and say that 10 times fast.
Okay, so coming back to the Adam and Eve thing, Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel. They married other hominids, whatever, that were not souls, but once they had kids, then those kids had souls.
You've already literally what you're describing, one, does not describe the God of Mormonism, where literally they give souls to aliens, and somehow you would have fully functioning Homo sapiens who would deserve a soul because they have consciousness and all of these things that Mormons literally believe come from having a soul, like the greater level of consciousness. They weren't just monkeys running around at that time and getting scooped up by Cain and Abel. So you're already ignoring that. But the thing that you're ignoring we just went over is nothing you just said would matter if the parents are still Adam and Eve. If all people's lineage starts or has even just a single point of convergence on Adam and Eve, which has already been explained to you why it is impossible.
Okay.
Yes.
You are correct there. I don't know enough about the DNA mitochondrial stuff.
Mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam. I suggest you Google it. Earlier, you also said something along the lines of God using evolution as the way he created life. And then you said, and that's what I think happened, which was also weird because you've now since said you don't believe in God and you aren't a Mormon.
Okay, so that was in context of me back when I was still believing. I don't. So
Okay.
if I
That would have been another thing that would have been contradictory, because once evolution begins, the reason why we're able to predict where we can find certain fossils and things is by looking at what the natural selection pressures would be that we know are present thanks to geology, anthropology, and different sciences, and can go find them as well. So it's yet another one of those beliefs you would have had that was contradictory to the actual science.
How is that? Okay, so I still don't understand how it's contradictory.
What
God
unnatural
uses evolution. God programmed, quote unquote, programmed evolution, and then let it run wild and did what it did.
If you have the
Okay,
goal,
first of all, the model of evolution doesn't have space in it for anybody, space or need for anybody to program it.
exactly.
It is definitionally undirected.
Like as in like an AI. Once you program an AI, you don't do anything with it after that.
No, it's not an AI. It's just chemicals self-replicating and being selected for or against by environmental factors, period.
Yes.
But you don't get to say yes when you just said something contradictory to what he just said and doesn't seem,
okay,
unless you're
but I
accepting
don't
we're
think
wrong.
it's contradictory. Evolution.
Well,
okay, so
Well, this
You
is
are bizarrely wrong.
Yeah.
what's that?
You don't understand evolution fundamentally, even as somebody who was raised by people who do. There is no broken chain of where evolution takes a turn it wouldn't have.
I never said it did.
I know you didn't, but it doesn't make sense to call God involved in any way without it. That direction, everything is happening naturally.
Yes.
The environmental factors that led us to lose our fur, for our brains to grow, for us to become more erect, and yet, and by that I meant stature, and yet God is aiming specifically for Homo sapiens who look like not only him, but look like their ghost forms that have already existed. They have big, beautiful human ghosts that look exactly like Homo sapiens. Then these species of people are eventually going to look like those Homo sapiens, identical to. We're going to jam the adult spirits in the babies' bodies, wipe their memory, but thank goodness all of those incidents happen to line up. The cooling of the earth, the different extinction events, the literally quadrillions of species going in and out. And not only has that happened totally naturally, because God in his infinite wisdom was able to make that happen, he's somehow done it across the universe in thousands, if not millions of other planets, which also have Homo sapiens developing through evolution. And on those planets, they're all hearing about our planet where Jesus Christ was crucified not only for our sins, but their sins as well. That's the story you have to defend and say, evolution being the way he did it, clearly undriven evolution, is the way, is the function that would have made that all happen.
I did have to defend that position for more than 25 years.
Yes, and this is a reason why you eventually
And I
had
was
to
able
stop,
to.
because it was indefensible.
Oh, sorry, no.
And you were able to, and you were able to, and you were able to, Will, you said, and you were able to.
Yes.
Who were you able to defend this to? Other Mormons who don't fucking understand science?
People that challenge my position.
We're challenging it right
either-
now. Why could you defend it 10 years ago, but you can't defend it today?
Mormons teach that you
no, I
defended the
can.
faith if
I don't
you
know if you
walk
guys want me
away.
to take 30 minutes to explain
No,
everything that he was.
I don't, because this is already
Oh
a
my
waste of time.
God.
So I'm going to be able to explain it in 1 minute because I remember what Mormonism
Okay.
is like. When you are asked to defend the faith, defending the faith doesn't mean somebody gives you, here's the facts about why you're wrong, and you successfully debunk their or win that argument. It is you hear those things, you don't let it shake your faith, you bear your testimony, and you walk away. That's literally what Mormon defending the faith is, and you start getting programmed to do that in fucking primary, if not nursery. It's not that
I
impressive.
never used bearing my testimony as an argument.
I very much doubt that. Because
Oh, no,
clearly you would have had to. Either
can
you
promise you
never
I didn't.
engaged with people who actually presented facts and then walked away with your faith still intact, or you did meet people who came at you with facts and had to go with stupid, silly level, testimony level apologetics of things like, well, I don't have to understand. And when you die, you'll find out I was right. Ha ha ha. The good old adage that even my dad still uses to this day, despite it being pointed out how stupid it is. I'm entirely bored with this because
used anything like that.
you're doing the weirdest ego exercise I think I've ever seen, which is
I'm sorry, it had nothing to do with ego.
yes, it does, because you
You
are
guys-
literally
I thought-
defending that you weren't being an arrogant, stubborn, non-scientific, understanding prick 10 years ago. What the reasons why you left were different, but you made the evolution
no.
work, so it
They've
wasn't
had-
intellectually inconsistent. When I've pointed out those inconsistencies, you've agreed that they were there, and then later said, well, I don't think I was doing that. I made it work. So what is the point
No,
of
I
continuing
didn't
this?
say that I convinced anybody.
Yourself you convinced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to. You
Wait,
have to convince
wait.
yourself, otherwise it doesn't work.
Wait. When you said a minute ago, and I questioned it,
Mhm.
that you were able to defend this, and I asked,
Yeah.
who did you defend it against? Other Mormons that didn't understand science. Are you saying that you didn't mean you actually convinced anybody when you were saying you defended this?
Some people I did, some people I didn't.
Now, just a second ago, you said you didn't say you convinced anybody. So if you did convince people, then
Okay.
why would you come back and reply that you didn't say you convinced people if in fact you did? So if we made a correct assumption about what you were implying, that you successfully defended this, why would you then say, well, I never said I convinced anybody, when now you're saying you did convince somebody? What the fuck is going on here?
The people that were the people that are adamant against like refusing to accept it, didn't believe. The people that were like, I believe in evolution, but I also believe I'm Mormon. I explained it, and they're like, okay, now I get how you can come from that direction.
Yeah, that doesn't answer my question. What the fuck is going on here?
Evolution.
If you say, shut up, Will. If you say that you defended this, and we then assume that that means successfully, and then
Okay.
you challenge us by saying, I never said I'd successfully defended it, and now you're saying you did successfully defend it, what the fuck is your point? Because I absolutely fucking hate liars and tap dancers.
With the people that were on the fence, where I was a little bit before them, that they're on the fence. I'm Mormon, but I believe in evolution. How do I work it out? Those people I was helped to reconcile the same way I was. For the people that didn't believe in evolution in the first place, I wasn't able to.
Now you're being dishonest now, because right now you're saying that
Okay.
you were taught to reconcile. The presentation you gave wasn't that you were taught to reconcile. It was that your reconciliations worked and were intellectually consistent. That's what we've been
Okay.
talking about the whole time.
No,
and
oh
they
no, not
worked
for you. How dare you interrupt and
Yeah.
fucking lie?
for me.
How dare you interrupt to
For who?
fucking lie and say, shut up, Will. I'm talking. You basically just started with a second ago, I never said I convinced anybody, to, well, I convinced the people who weren't obtuse and indoctrinated, to, well, I convinced myself. What the fuck is why are you still on my fucking show?
Okay, Matt, you asked if I convinced people that were already against it. No.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I fucking didn't. You can't even listen to a goddamn question. I'm not repeating the question, Will. You're done.
Yeah, this conversation's going nowhere.
I don't believe that you are remotely honest or worth another moment of my time on this show today.
Go back and watch, Will, because your argument wasn't that you made it work for you. It was that it was consistent and that your parents' beliefs of evolution were consistent and that it was generally you made it all work and you spoke to things in the doctrine not being contradictory and then tried to make Adam and Eve work. Good luck. Try science sometime. Goodbye.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jimmy Snow. I'm the executive producer of The Line. And at night, I sneak into Matt Dillahunty's house and I trade his cereals for other cereals. He comes out and he's like, wait, these are cereals I buy, but I swear I had different cereals. Anyway, would you like to support this channel or any specific show? You can do so over on Patreon or in channel memberships. There are special tiers for special shows or for the channel at large, and it helps us expand programming as well as hopefully very soon launch it in podcast form. Now, also, if you'd like to support, you can like, you can subscribe, you can leave a comment or a super thanks, which is a special highlighted comment that you pay for. Those are fun. And, screw the algorithm, go check out something over here, I suppose. Boy, I hope I can still put those icons there, because if I can't, this is going to look really stupid. I'm going to go buy some Cocoa Puffs and switch out Matt's mini wheats now.